In the last couple of videos, we discussed Docker and Kubernetes. Hopefully you had a chance to go through those appendix videos at the very end of the course and get more familiar with Docker if you didn't know about it already. So I'm saying here, you're a Docker pro now, right? I do not expect you to be a Docker pro. I really just expect you to have a basic understanding of what a container is, what an image is, how to create images, how to create containers, and a couple of commands around them. Just to reinforce some of that knowledge, in this video, we're going to start to Dockerize our post service, and then we're going to play around with the image and container just a little bit. So let's get to it. In order to Dockerize our post service, we're going to have to create an image out of it. To make an image, remember, we make a Docker file and then run the docker build command. In this diagram, I've listed out the different commands that we're going to write out inside of the Docker file for the post project. The first thing we'll do is specify our base image of node Alpine. We'll then specify a working directory, which is going to set the working directory for the rest of all these commands inside of our Docker file. We'll then copy over just the package.json file, install our dependencies using that file, and then copy over all the other source code from our project. And then finally, we'll set up our default command of npm start to start up our container. So let's flip over to our code editor and start putting this Docker file together. Back inside of my editor, I'll find the post directory. Inside there, I'll make a new file called Docker file. And remember, it has to have a capital D and no extension on it whatsoever. Then we'll write out those series of commands that we were just looking at inside that diagram. We'll first specify our base image. We'll then set up a working directory of /app. We will copy over just the package.json file. And then we will run npm install to install all of our dependencies. After that, we will copy over everything else from our post directory. So that really just means our index.js file. And then finally, we'll set up our default command of npm start. And that should be it. Now, one other thing we're going to do really quickly, remember that if you went through those videos in the appendix, we usually don't want to include any installed dependencies that are on our local machine. So in our case, that would be the node modules folder. In order to make sure that we don't send all those dependencies over during the image building process, we're going to create a file inside this post directory called dot, make sure you get a dot in there, docker ignore. And then inside of here, we will write out node modules like so. That's going to make sure that during the image building process, we do not attempt to copy over that node modules directory, because the image is going to install all the relevant dependencies when it is being built on its own. Okay, so let's now close those two files. We'll then go back over to our terminal. I will change into the post directory, and then inside there we'll do a docker build dot. So that's going to pull down the node base image, set our working directory, copy over package.json, install dependencies using that package.json file. The dependencies should be installed rather quickly. We'll then copy over all of the other files inside of our project, and then set up that default command. And at the very end, we get the ID of the image that was just built. So we can now create an instance of that image, or in other words, a container, by copying that ID and running docker run and then pasting the ID of that image. And there we go. Looks like our server is running successfully. Okay, so that's a good step forward. Let's take a pause right here. And then, as I mentioned, we'll do a quick review on some basic commands with Docker.